"It's burning, please help me," she cried from somewhere deep in the smoke. Jake Morrison dropped his coffee cup, the tin clattering against the porch planks as he vaulted the railing. Orange flames licked the night sky above the old Hendricks place, the cabin that had sat empty for 3 years, ever since Martha Hendricks disappeared without a trace. The woman's voice came again, weaker now, muffled by the roar of fire consuming dry timber. Jake's boots pounded the hard-packed earth as he ran toward the inferno, his heart hammering against his ribs. The heat hit him like a physical blow 50 yards out, but he pressed forward, squinting through the smoke and dancing shadows. "Where are you?" he shouted, his voice barely cutting through the crackling fury. "Here inside." Jake circled the burning structure, searching for a way in. The front door had already collapsed inward, blocked by a wall of flame. The back door hung askew on twisted hinges, smoke pouring out like black blood from a wound. He pulled his shirt up over his nose and mouth, took a deep breath of cleaner air, and plunged inside. The smoke stung his eyes until tears streamed down his cheeks. He dropped to his hands and knees where the air was slightly clearer, feeling his way through the familiar layout he remembered from childhood visits to old Martha. The kitchen to his right, the sitting room ahead, the bedroom beyond that. "Keep calling out," he yelled. "I can't see you." Here in the bedroom. Jake crawled faster, the floorboards already hot enough to burn through his palms. A beam groaned overhead, showering sparks that singed his hair. He reached the bedroom doorway and peered through the haze. She sat huddled in the far corner, her long dark hair hanging like a curtain around her face. Her dress, or what remained of it, hung in tatters, yet strangely, the flames seemed to avoid her completely. The fire raged all around her, consuming the walls, the furniture, the very air itself, but she sat untouched in a perfect circle of calm. Jake blinked, certain the smoke was playing tricks on his vision. But no, the flames genuinely parted around her like water around a stone. "Give me your hand," he called out, extending his arm toward her. She looked up then, and Jake Morrison's blood turned to ice in his veins. Her face was Martha Hendricks' face, the same gentle brown eyes, the same delicate features he remembered from Sunday services and harvest festivals. But Martha would be over 60 now, and this woman looked exactly as Martha had the day she vanished. Not a day older, not a single line of age or worry creasing her unchanged skin, and her eyes held no recognition of the 23 years that had passed. Jake's extended hand trembled in the superheated air. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but the woman Martha, impossible as it seemed, reached toward him with desperate fingers. "Please," she whispered. "I've been waiting so long." The beam above groaned again, more urgent now. Jake had maybe 30 seconds before the whole structure came down. His rational mind catalogued the impossibilities. Martha's unchanged face, the way fire bent around her like she was made of something flame couldn't touch. The fact that she'd been missing for over 2 decades. But her fear was real. Her tears were real. "Take my hand," Jake said, pushing forward despite the terror clawing at his chest. Their fingers touched, and the world exploded into memory. Martha Hendricks, age 37, baking pies for the church social. Martha laughing at something her husband Samuel said. Martha's scream echoing across the valley the night their house first burned, the night Samuel died and she disappeared, leaving only questions and whispered theories about grief-driven madness. The visions hit Jake like physical blows. Martha running into the flames to save Samuel, the roof collapsing, the strange silence that followed. And then, nothing. A gap of 23 years filled only with emptiness and waiting.
Oh.
"You're not Martha," Jake breathed, even as he pulled her to her feet. "I am," she insisted, her grip surprisingly strong. "I've always been Martha. I just couldn't leave. Not without Samuel." The ceiling beam chose that moment to surrender, crashing down exactly where Jake had been kneeling. Splinters of burning wood scattered like deadly confetti. Martha moved with impossible grace, guiding them both through the maze of flame and smoke toward the back door. Outside, Jake gulped the clean night air, while Martha stood beside him, untouched by soot or burn. She looked exactly as she had inside the inferno, beautiful, young, and terrifyingly wrong. "People will come," Jake said, his voice hoarse from smoke. "They'll see the fire, ask questions." Martha nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the dying flames. "They came before, the night it first happened. Sheriff Daniels, Doc Patterson, half the town. They searched for days, because you vanished, because I couldn't leave Samuel behind." She turned to face Jake fully, and in the firelight, her features seemed to shift between the Martha he remembered and something else entirely. "Will you help me? Will you help me find him?" The distant sound of hoofbeats reached them, riders approaching fast. Jake recognized the rhythm, Sheriff Daniels and his deputies, probably roused by someone who'd spotted the flames. In minutes they'd arrived to find Jake standing beside a woman who should be 57 years old, but looked exactly as she had the day she disappeared. A woman who walked through fire without burning. "Jake Morrison, step away from her." "Now," Sheriff Daniels' voice cut through the night like a blade. 3 riders emerged from the darkness, their horses dancing nervously at the edge of the firelight.
Oh!
Deputy Walsh held a rifle across his saddle, while young Tommy Fletcher, barely old enough to wear a badge, kept one hand on his sidearm. Jake raised his empty hands, acutely aware of Martha standing motionless beside him. "Sheriff, there was a woman trapped inside. I got her out." "That ain't no woman, Jake." Daniel's weathered face looked carved from stone. "That's something wearing Martha Hendricks' skin." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Martha didn't flinch, didn't protest. She simply watched the lawman with those impossibly young eyes, her lips curved in the faintest suggestion of a smile. "You're talking nonsense," Jake said, but his voice lacked conviction. The memory of flames parting around her, of her unchanged face, made his protests ring hollow. "Am I?" Daniels dismounted slowly, his hand resting on his gun belt. "Tommy, tell Jake what you told me." The young deputy swallowed hard. "My grandmother, she knew things, old things. She told me about the fire 23 years ago, about what really happened to Martha Hendricks." "Enough," Jake interrupted. "Whatever stories you've heard." "She burned," Tommy continued, his voice strengthening with purpose. "Burned alive trying to save her husband. But she made a bargain first, traded her soul to walk between worlds, to search for Samuel's spirit. Thing is, spirits like that, they don't belong in our world. They pull at the boundaries between life and death, weakening them." Martha laughed then, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Such clever boys. Yes, I burned. Yes, I made a choice. But love doesn't recognize the rules of death, does it, Jake?" The temperature around them plummeted. Jake's breath misted in the suddenly frigid air, and the horses whickered in distress, pulling against their reins. The fire behind them began to die, not from lack of fuel but as if something was actively draining its heat. "Every time she appears," Daniels said, never taking his eyes off Martha, "every time that house burns, more people disappear. Start with folks who try to help her, then spread outward. My own brother vanished the winter after Martha's first burning, found his body come spring, frozen solid in July heat." Jake felt the cold seeping into his bones, his joints stiffening with each passing second. Martha's hand found his arm, and where she touched him, ice crystals began forming on his shirt sleeve. "I only want Samuel," Martha said, her voice carrying an otherworldly echo now. "Help me find him, and I'll leave your world in peace."
Oh!
"We can't let you keep searching," Daniels replied, drawing his weapon. "Too many good people have died." The standoff stretched taut as a bowstring. Jake stood frozen, literally now, ice spreading up his arm from Martha's touch, between a supernatural entity, wearing his neighbor's face, and 3 terrified lawmen who saw only a threat to be eliminated. In the distance more riders approached. Word was spreading, soon half the county would converge on this spot, and Jake realized with dawning horror that no matter what happened next, people would die tonight, unless he could find another way. "Wait." Jake's voice cracked through the tension like a whip.
Oh!
"Martha, you said you've been searching for Samuel for 23 years. She nodded, her ethereal grip loosening slightly on his arm. The ice crystals stopped spreading, though the cold remained. "Where have you looked?" "Everywhere," she whispered, and for the first time Jake heard exhaustion in her voice. "Every shadow, every whisper between worlds. I've walked the places where souls linger, searched the depths where lost spirits wander, but Samuel, he's not there." Jake's mind raced, pieces of a puzzle clicking together. He'd been 12 when the Hendricks house first burned, old enough to remember the aftermath. "Martha, when they found Samuel's body, where did they bury him?" Sheriff Daniels frowned. "Jake, what are you?" "Answer me," Jake insisted. "It's important." "Consecrated ground," Daniels said slowly. "St. Michael's Cemetery beside his parents and grandparents." Martha's form flickered like a candle flame in wind. "Consecrated, but I cannot walk on holy ground. The boundaries, they won't let me pass, because you chose to bind yourself to the world of the living," Jake said gently. "You traded your soul's rest for the chance to search for Samuel, but souls at rest, souls that found peace." He looked directly into her ancient weary eyes.
Oh.
"They don't linger in shadows, Martha. They move on." The temperature began to rise slightly. Martha's supernatural cold was giving way to something more human, the chill of realization, of a truth too painful to accept. "You're saying he's gone," she breathed. "Truly gone." "I'm saying he found peace, 23 years ago. He's waiting for you somewhere you can't reach as long as you're bound to this half-life." Tears traced silver paths down Martha's unchanged cheeks. "Then I've condemned myself for nothing. All these years, all these deaths, for nothing." Jake carefully placed his free hand over hers, ignoring the cold that bit into his palm. "Not for nothing, for love." "But Martha, true love doesn't trap the beloved. It lets them go when it's time." Sheriff Daniels lowered his weapon slightly, sensing the shift in Martha's demeanor. Even Deputy Walsh relaxed his grip on the rifle. "How do I let go?" Martha asked, her voice small and lost. "How do I undo what I've done?" Jake thought of his grandmother's stories, of old beliefs and older truths. "The same way you bound yourself, with a choice. But this time, choose rest over searching, choose peace over pain." Martha looked toward the cemetery, invisible in the darkness but somehow present in her awareness. "If I let go, if I choose to rest, will I see him again?" "I believe you will," Jake said softly, "but I can't promise when or how. Faith means trusting in things we can't see." For a long moment Martha stood silent, weighing eternity against uncertainty. The fire behind them had dwindled to glowing embers, and the approaching riders had stopped at a respectful distance, sensing something profound was taking place. Finally Martha smiled, the first genuine expression of peace Jake had seen on her face. "Help me," she said. "Help me choose." Jake kept hold of Martha's hand as they walked toward St. Michael's Cemetery, the small procession moving through the pre-dawn darkness like a funeral cortege. Sheriff Daniels led, his deputy beside him, while Tommy Fletcher brought up the rear. None of them spoke. Words seemed too small for what was happening. At the cemetery gates, Martha stopped. The wrought iron barriers, blessed decades ago by Father McKenna, stood like a wall between worlds. Beyond them white headstones caught the first pale hints of sunrise. "I can feel him," Martha whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "He's been waiting, all this time. He's been waiting just beyond where I could reach." Jake squeezed her fingers gently. "What do you need to do?" "Let go." She turned to face him, and Jake saw that her features were already beginning to change, becoming more translucent, more ethereal. "Let go of the anger, the desperation, the need to control what cannot be controlled." She released Jake's hand and stepped back, raising her arms toward the lightening sky. "Samuel," she called out, her voice carrying across dimensions. "Samuel, I'm ready to come home." The change began slowly, a soft golden light emanating from Martha's skin, growing brighter with each passing second. The supernatural cold that had surrounded her for 23 years gave way to warmth, to the gentle heat of a soul, finally accepting its fate. "Thank you," she said to Jake,
her form now more light than substance. "Thank you for showing me the way." The golden radiance intensified until Jake had to shield his eyes. When it faded, Martha Hendricks was gone. In her place stood a different figure, translucent but unmistakably male, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Samuel Hendricks nodded once to Jake, a gesture of profound gratitude, then turned toward the cemetery. As he walked, the blessed gates swung open of their own accord. He paused at a weathered headstone, reaching down to touch it with fingers made of starlight. A second figure materialized beside him, Martha, but Martha as she should have been, aged with dignity and grace, her face lined with years of love rather than torment. They embraced like lovers reunited after a long journey, and together, they began to fade. "Wait," Jake called out, "the people who died, the ones who tried to help you." Martha's spirit turned back, understanding in her eyes. "They are safe," she said, her voice now carrying the peace of the grave. "Death claimed their bodies, but their souls were never lost. They wait in the light forgiven." With that, Samuel and Martha Hendricks stepped into eternity together, their forms dissolving like morning mist before the rising sun. Sheriff Daniels holstered his weapon with shaking hands. "Well, I'll be damned. No," Jake said quietly, watching the empty cemetery gates swing shut. "I don't think any of us will be. Not tonight." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Years later, Jake Morrison would tell his grandchildren about the night he helped a soul find peace. He would speak of love that transcended death, of choices that echo across decades, and of the courage it takes to let go of what we think we need in order to find what we truly seek. The old Hendricks place never burned again. Wild flowers grew where the cabin had stood, and travelers often reported a sense of deep peace when passing through that particular valley. Some said that on quiet nights, if you listened carefully, you could hear the sound of gentle laughter carried on the wind, the voices of two souls who had finally found their way home. Jake Morrison lived to be 93, and with his final breath he swore he saw them waiting for him in the light beyond the cemetery gates, their faces radiant with the joy of those who choose love over fear, peace over pain, and trust over the illusion of control. The last thing he remembered was Martha Hendricks' voice, warm as summer sunshine, saying, "Thank you for teaching me how to let go." Word count 2087.